Hello, welcome back to PrepBee. And here we are with yet another episode of VARC. And we are going to solve today CAT 2023 Slot 1 passage. So let's get started. Also, if there is any difficulty that you're facing in terms of any passage, please share it with us, share it in the comment box or share it with us in the Telegram. And we'll take it up and we'll solve it for you guys in the upcoming videos. All right, so let's get started now. 50 years after its publication in English in 1972, and just a year since Marshall Sahlins himself died, we may ask, why did his essay, Original Affluent Society, have such an impact, and how has it fared since? So 50 years after the essay was published and a year after author's passing, people are still reflecting on why his essay was such impactful and why and how are we even considering its relevance today. So Sahlins' principal argument was simple but counterintuitive. Before being driven into marginal environments by colonial powers, hunter-gatherers or foragers were not engaged in a desperate struggle for a meager survival. So they are trying to say that Sahlins' main point was straightforward, but it was very surprising. What was that? Hunter-gatherers weren't struggling to survive, even though colonialism later forced them into less resourceful areas. All right. So what was his main point? That even though colonialism forced them into less resourceful areas, hunter-gatherers they were not struggling to survive. All right. Quite the contrary, they satisfied their needs with far less work than people in agricultural and industrial societies, leaving them more time to use as they wished. So, in fact, these people they met their needs with much less effort than farmers or industrial workers. So, they had more free time. All right. So, hunters, he quipped, keep bankers ours, refusing to maximize. Many were more concerned with the games of chance than with chances of gain. The so-called Neolithic revolution, rather than improving life, imposed a harsher work regime and set in motion the long history of growing inequality. So the author is humorously suggesting that the hunter-gatherers they worked very short hours. They had fixed hours similar to those of bankers. So they had bankers' hours of working, very short hours. So instead of working constantly to gather more and more, they often preferred to play games or take risks rather than focusing solely on hunting. However, the shift to farming, that is the Neolithic revolution, it made life harder by increasing the work demands, and it did not improve the life. And it and there started the beginning of the trend of social inequality. So here the author is just trying to put a very simple, straightforward idea that hunter-gatherers were not struggling to survive. Or they worked very less hours. They met their needs with much less efforts than these days what agricultural and industrial societies they do. They had so much free time. They worked like bankers. Instead of working constantly together, they preferred to have more fun. They were risk taking. They did not focus solely on hunting. But now, when we are shifting to when the shift happened to Neolithic revolution, rather than improving life, it actually started the trend of growing inequality. All right. So this is the main idea of the first paragraph. Moreover, foragers had other options. The contemporary heads of Tanzania, who had long been surrounded by farmers, knew they had alternatives and rejected them. To Salines, this showed that foragers are not simply examples of human diversity or victimhood, but something more profound. They demonstrated that societies make real choices. Societies they make real choices. Culture, a way of living oriented around a distinctive set of values, manifests a fundamental principle of collective self-determination. So, the author is adding that the foragers or the hunter-gatherers, they could choose different ways of life, right? For instance, the Hadza people in Tanzania, they lived near farming communities. They were aware of farming, but they chose not to adopt it. They rejected the farming. They had options, but they still did hunting. All right. Now, to Sahlin, this proved that the hunter-gatherers weren't just a unique part of humanity, or they were not just the victims of the history. They made deliberate lifestyle choices. They were the one who were making real choices. In his view, a culture reflects how a society chooses to live based on its shared values, showing their power of choice and self direction. So, this culture reflects how the society chooses to live based on the shared values, and this shows that they have collective power, they have collective self direction. All right. But the point of the essay is not much the empirical validity of the data. The real interest for most readers, after all, is not in foragers either today or in the Paleolithic, but rather its conceptual challenge to contemporary economic life and Bourdieu's individualism. The empirical served a philosophical and political project, a thought experiment, and stimulus to the imagination of possibilities. All right. So Saline's essay isn't mainly about proving what hunter-gatherers did or what was there, nor readers are interested in all of this, right? So what is it about? The fact in his essays actually they were a tool for a deeper message, inspiring readers to think about alternate ways of life. Right? There were hundreds of possibilities. So the readers' interests were not about how did they live or they live or what was the data empirical validity of this data. No, they were not interested in that. But they were interested in the conceptual challenge to contemporary economic life. All right. So it served as a way to think what are the different ways of possibilities that exist in life. Right. But its titles nod towards the affluent society, 1958. Economist John Kenneth Galbraith's famously skeptical portrait of America's post-war prosperity and inequality and dripped with new left contempt for consumerism. The original affluent society brought this critical perspective to bear on the contemporary world. So this essay's title references is given that John Kennett's book, The Affluent Society. It criticized the American consumerism and inequality, and Sahlin's essay shares this critical view about the consumerism and inequality. Okay, it did so through the classic anthropological move of showing that radical alternatives to the reader's lives really exist. So Saline, he used a common anthropology approach to show readers that entirely different lifestyles are possible. If the capitalist world seeks wealth through ever greater material production to meet infinitely expansive desires, foraging societies to follow the Zen route to affluence, not by getting more, but by wanting less. So here what it says is while capitalism, it seeks wealth through endless production and desire. Hunter-gatherers, what they did, they found contentment by being satisfied with less. All right. If it seems that foragers have been left behind by progress, this is due only to the ethnocentric self-configuration of the West. Rather than accumulate material goods, these societies are guided by other values, leisure, mobility, and above all, freedom. So here, what they are saying that if we think hunter-gatherers are backward, it is because of the Western bias that we have. That what is the bias? That progress is very essential. Progress having Western bias assumes that Western progress is superior, right? So instead of gathering possessions, hunter gatherers, what they did, they valued their free time, mobility, and also the freedom that they got, the independence that they had. They valued that instead of just going on a hunting spree. All right. Viewed in today's context, of course, not every aspect of the essay has aged well. While acknowledging the violence of colonialism, racism, and dispossession, it does not thematize them as heavily as we might today. Rebuking evolutionary anthropologists for treating present day foragers as left behind by progress, it too can succumb to the temptation to use them as proxies for the Paleolithic. Yet these characteristics should not distract us from appreciating Saline's efforts to show that if we want to conjure new possibilities, we need to learn about actually inhabitable worlds. So, although Saline recognized colonialism, racism, and dispossession, he did not focus on these topics as strongly as we might do it in the present. All right. Sahlin criticized anthropologists who viewed foragers as backward. He also tended to portray them as an example of ancient lifestyle. So despite all these issues, we can still value that, we can still appreciate the Salient's attempt to show that if we want to imagine different futures, we need to study real and workable alternatives. That is, we need to conjure all the new possibilities that probably exist. Okay. So this is something that the author says. Now let's go to the questions. We can infer that Salient's main goal in writing this essay is to highlight the fact that we started off as fairly contented egalitarian people. We have progressively degenerated into materialism. Materialism की बात नहीं हुई है. It's about exploring the other lifestyles that can be and how foragers had their life, had their freedom. Put forth in view that despite egalitarian origins, economic progress brings greater inequality, and they are not saying that it that social hierarchies की बातें नहीं हुई हैं. So again, distortion of facts. Then hold a mirror to the acquisitive society with examples of other communities that have chosen successfully to be non-materialistic. Okay, it holds a mirror to the present society. Yes, it has given examples of foragers. We'll hold on to it. Counter Galbraith's pessimistic view of the inevitability of the capitalist trajectory for economic growth. Very small idea, not really the main goal. Hence, third is your option. The author mentions Tanzania's Hadza community to illustrate that forager community's lifestyle derived not from ignorance about alternatives, but from their own choice. This is exactly what they said, that these Tanzania people, they knew farming. उनको पता था farming कैसे करने, but they chose not to. They had that freedom, right? They were surrounded by farmers. They knew they had alternatives and they rejected them. That was their choice. So that was not an ignorance, but their own choice. So we'll hold on to this. How two vastly different ways of living and working were able to coexist in proximity for centuries? Nahin. How pre-agrarian societies did not hamper the emergence of more. ये सब बोलते नहीं. This is mainly about the choice, and hence we'll mark this option. Now, the author of the passage criticizes Sally's essays for यहाँ पे दे रखा है कि while acknowledging the violence of all this, it does not thematize them heavily as we might do it today. इतना heavily criticism नहीं होता है उसका. Outdated values regarding present day foragers versus uh, ancient foraging communities नहीं. Failure to supplement with empirical data, उसके लिए criticism नहीं है. Critique of anthropologists who dispatch the choices, वो साहिलीन का ऐसे क्रिटिसाइज करता है इनको, ना कि ऑथर इसके बारे में ये बोलता है. तो दिस इज समवॉट कंफ्यूजिंग ऑप्शन, बट सही नहीं है. Cursory treatment of the effects of racism and colonialism on societies. This is your answer. Now, the author of the passage mentions Galbraith's The Affluent Society to what? Contrast the materialistic nature of contemporary growth paths with the pacifist content ways of living among the foragers. 9. Document the influence of Galbraith's cynical views on modern consumerism on Sahlin's analysis of prehistorical society. कुछ documentation की बात नहीं है. Show how Galbraith's theories refute Sahlin's theses on the contentment of pre-hunter gatherer communities. Refute की बात नहीं हो रही है. Show how Sahlin's view complemented his criticism on the consumerism and inequality of contemporary society. यहाँ पे दे रखा है कि उन्होंने भी सेम बात बोल दी थी. How about there is consumerism and all of that, and how it has been complemented the Sahlin's essay. Okay, now the passage is given below, followed by 4 summaries, alternate summaries. Choose the best one. Manipulating information was a feature of history long before modern journalism established rules of integrity. A record dates back to ancient Rome, where Antony met Cleopatra and his political enemy Octavian launched a smear campaign against him with short, sharp slogans written upon coins. The praetor became the first Roman emperor, and fake news had allowed Octavian to hack the Republican system once and for all. But the 21st century has seen the weaponization of information on an unprecedented scale. Powerful new technology makes the fabrication of content simple and social Networks amplify falsehood peddled by states, populist politicians, and dishonest corporate entities. These platforms become fertile ground for computational propaganda, trolling, and troll armies. So it is just saying how we manipulate information. It is a feature of the past. It has given one example to ancient Rome, and now it has become a weaponization of information. And there is with new powerful technology, there are social networks, and now we are peddling the false information. Who is doing that? These people are doing, the state, the populist politicians, and all of this. And now we have created a troll armies for ourselves. All right, now let's see. Disinformation, which is mediated by technology today, is not new and has existed. It is not mediated by technology but by the people. All right, and hence यहाँ पे थोड़ा distortion. People need to become critical of what they read, since historically weaponization of information has led to corruption. People need to become critical. ये सब ज्ञान नहीं दिया है author ने. So use of misinformation for attaining power, a practice that is as old as the Octavian era, is currently fueled by technology. Fueled by technology, yes. Mediated by technology, no. यहाँ पे ये mediate is something that these people are doing. But now it is fueled because powerful new technology makes the fabrication of content simple. So it is very easy nowadays to do. Okay, we'll hold on to this. यहाँ पे दे रखा है कि old भी है, अभी technology की वजह से ज़्यादा भी हो रहा है. We'll hold on. Octavian used fake news to manipulate people and attain power and influence, just as people do today. We are completely skipping, how technology has an impact here, and it is just as people do today is not really true. Power influence की बात नहीं है, कोई भी कर रहा है, corporate entity भी कर रहा है, maybe they are doing for profit, so you don't know. So ये थोड़ा generalize हो गया है. So 3 is your option. All right. Colonialism is a modern phenomenon. World history is full of examples of one society gradually expanding by incorporating adjacent territory and settling its people on newly conquered territory. In the 16th century, colonialism changed decisively because of technological developments in navigation that began to connect more remote parts of the world. The modern European colonial project merged when it became possible to move large number of people across the ocean and maintain political control in spite of the geographical dispersion. The term colonialism is used to describe the process of European settlement, violent dispersion of political domination over the rest of the world, including America, Australia, and parts of Africa and Asia. Now, colonialism surged in 16th century due to navigation, uh, enabling British settlements abroad and global dominance. Yeah, but it's just talking about, the examples that are there and how, what were the advancements that were made because of the technological development. Now they are also telling that where all it was there, what happened. So a very broad context has mainly. As a result of development in navigation technology, European colonialism led to displacement of indigenous populations and global political changes in the 16th century. This one. And hence, it is not true. Colonialism, conceptualized in the 16th century, allowed colonizers to expand their territories, establish settlements, and exercise political power. Okay, but not very broad. We'll hold on to it. Technological advancements in navigation in 16th century transformed colonialism, enabling Europeans to establish settlements and exert political dominance over distant regions. यहाँ पे दे रखा है रीजन क्या है 16th century से क्या हुआ था, मतलब why was it to establish the dominance over the distant regions. तो ये ज़्यादा broad है, and hence we'll choose this option. So 4th is your answer. So I hope you understood the passage and everything is done. So this is your final 30-day challenge, and this is your day 8. And just keep learning, keep practicing. If you have any doubts, if you face any difficulties, we are here to help you. Ping us on Telegram or just write it in the comment box, and we are happy to help. Best of luck for your preparations.